Here are Timothy Mosley and Austin Myers. Both of them were found guilty of killing 18-year-old Justin in Waynesville, Ohio. The two guys, Myers and Mosley, went to Back's house and tried to steal his father's safe. The Back was strangled with a choke wire so that there would be no mess after the theft. It is a more straightforward task to complete. Justin was not aiming to overwhelm us, but instead trying to put up a fight. Then, Justin Beck suffered 21 stab wounds before passing away. Justin was essentially pleading for his life and attempting to ask us why he was playing the stop. Mosley testified against Myers during the trial to get a plea deal that resulted in a guilty plea and a life sentence. In an attempt to escape receiving the death penalty, Myers finally takes the stand in front of the jury and begs them to spare his life for his family.
No, I've made a horrible mistake. I'm only 19 years old. I think there's a lot of good things I can do with my life.
If you decide to end my life, it's simply going to make another family's sorrow worse. Not me. I won't get harmed by it. I have no feelings at all. There will be more innocent victims as a result. Justin's father is speaking again at this point. I won't tell you how much I detest you while I'm up here. That is beyond dispute. I hope that, following the jury's recommendation for the death penalty, you will always see my son Justin when you close your eyes at night. Myers has one more chance to ask the judge to spare his life. I believe I have a lot of worthwhile options for my life. Should I be granted the right to live and the judge rules against it, he gives the most prolonged punishment possible. Because the defendant is unable to comprehend the value of life, Austin will get a death sentence. At the age of 19, Gregory Meyer is accused of aggravated murder, an allegation to which he only slightly objected. Myers became the youngest person from Ohio to be sent on death row as a result. He is presently in Chillicothe, awaiting death. This has devastated so many lives in prisons, and it was all for naught. I mean, the safe contained no money. It contained nothing. Their actions were essentially in vain. This is Nico Jenkins, who went on a killing rampage in Omaha, Nebraska. For 10 days when he was 15 years old, he was found guilty on 4 charges of murder. Jenkins served a 10-year jail term for carjacking and violence before being transferred to a juvenile correctional facility. 8 days after being freed for a month, Jenkins shot and murdered 2 people during a heist. He met the next victim in jail, a former prisoner. In his very own garage, he was shot and died. Jenkins murdered his 4th victim in a carjacking 2 days later. Jenkins was detained on unrelated charges, but it was during this detention that police linked him to one of the killings and the ammunition used. Jenkins called and I answered. "You're unaware of that. Nico Jenkins was given to me. I understand you. I mean, I got the scene of the murder. In the automobile, I found your DNA. Yes, I have the weapon. I obtained Jenkins." Nico Jenkins entered a plea of not guilty to 40 charges of first-degree murder. In addition, he forfeited his right to a jury trial, so a panel of 3 judges will determine his guilt or innocence. These killings were all premeditated and planned acts. The killings were planned and the victims were pre-selected. Jenkins remains still after being found guilty of all 4 killings. And now that he is being sentenced, this panel determines that the death penalty is suitable. It is, therefore, applied to each of the defendant's 4 crimes. Jenkins seemed to be entirely unconcerned by his death sentence. He is presently serving his death sentence while housed at the Nebraska State Penitentiary. This is Mark Keith Lloyd, who is being prosecuted in Florida for murder. And lastly, Ephraim Lloyd, who was already incarcerated for the murder of Sadie Dixon. His ex-girlfriend, who was pregnant, was wanted for her murder. On January 9th, 2017, a Walmart customer noticed him. They started shopping at crossing paths a few times, speculating what would happen. During a gunfight outside the store, Lieutenant Deborah Clayton attempted to stop him, but Lloyd shot and killed her. Lloyd fled the scene of the shooting and was tracked down by the police. 9 days later, despite this setback, Lloyd remained resolute and ended up losing his eye in a struggle with the officers. In addition, Lloyd stated that while on a quest for Clayton's killer, he was kicked and beaten by police, which caused brain damage. Because of worries over Lloyd's mental state, the sentencing hearing was postponed. He maintained throughout the trial that he was acting in self-defense when he fired at Clayton and that he was crazy at the time, and yet, as if his offenses weren't terrible enough, The court decided that he was competent to proceed with the sentencing hearing. You will be even more shocked by Lloyd's actions in court. True, Mr. Lloyd, take note of your speech pattern and tone outside out. Lloyd testified throughout the trial that he fired Clayton out of self-defense. Additionally, he stated that when he shot Dixon and her brother 1 month before Clayton's death, he was acting in self-defense. He maintained that he didn't plan to murder anyone, that he was only reacting. Even when they opened the door, all I could do was react, I suppose, to imply that Lloyd had been found guilty of 5 counts, including attempted first-degree murder of a police officer, first-degree murder itself, aggravated assault, carjacking with a firearm, and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. Lloyd had been given the death penalty. Judge Letitia Marquez of the Ninth Circuit was punished over 3 months after a jury recommended the death penalty. The jury has unanimously decided that Marquis Floyd, the defendant, ought to receive the death penalty. Following the issuance of his death sentence, Lloyd became extremely angry. Since Mr. Lloyd's punishment was handed down more than 5 years after Clayton's death, why don't we take him out of the courtroom? At 42, passed away, and was posthumously promoted to lieutenant in the Orlando Police Department. Chief Orlando stated his hope that the sentence would offer comfort to the community by ensuring that a violent killer would get the worst punishment possible under the law. Despite Lloyd's awful acts and responses, you will be shocked by the following case. Please allow me to present Shanita and Erica to you. In a Charleston, North Carolina courtroom, Erica Mae Butts and Shanita Latrice Cunningham are accused of killing Serenity Richardson. 2009 saw it. Serenity Richardson, a 3-year-old girl, was discovered dead. It was found that Erica, her very own godmother, and her lover were the cause of death. Shanita Serenity was visiting Erica's home for a 2-week vacation. When the event took place, it was revealed to the court that the woman had previously touched Tranquility. In actuality, they frequently used plastic coat hangers and a belt as assistance. Every aspect of Tranquility was abused, well, except from her feet soles when she stopped responding. By the time the medics came, she had already passed away despite their best efforts to resuscitate her using cold and bleach. The women said that Serenity had an accident and they had no idea that what they had done would kill her. Like the mistreatment wasn't awful enough. The matter was rendered much more poignant by the drama that transpired in court. The trial was a very personal experience. However, the 2 ladies passed out, cried out incoherently, and began to hyperventilate as soon as Judge Dedra Richardson delivered their punishment. 3 court officials had to physically throw the mother out after yelling at her daughter to get up, in addition to the authorities having to pick them up off the floor and cart them out of the room whenever necessary. Both Erica and Shanita will spend the remainder of their lives behind bars after being convicted of murder. Attorney Elizabeth Gordon stated that in her 4 years of pursuing crimes against special victims, this was the worst instance she had ever encountered. This is Michael Brady, who tried to break out of Pasco Tank Correctional Institution in North Carolina, killing 4 corrections officers in the process. Hit Jeffrey Howe 4 or 8 times, or until he stopped moving. I'm not sure how many times I hammered him. After firing at a North Carolina state trooper, Brady was found guilty of attempted murder and faced 24 years in prison. 4 years into his sentence, Brady and 3 other prisoners viciously killed prison staff members with hammers and scissors. Michael Braid, the man, and George, the midget, beat him up like he was attempting to break through concrete out of avarice. He then attempted to jump a fence, but was apprehended at gunpoint. It resembled a battlefield. The lift floor was covered in blood, so I moved between Jeffrey and Wendy and slipped as I tried to get in during the trial. Brady was the one who plotted the attack, according to the prosecution, and he showed no regret for the deaths. We are aware of the plan's creator. After Brady is found guilty, we know who was in charge of the aircraft. At his sentencing, he now makes his statement. You are free to ask me anything you want, and I won't mind if you're honest. It doesn't matter if it helps or hurts me. You don't think you're insane. Are you aware? I don't believe I'm insane. No. Can you distinguish between right and wrong? You are aware that murder is foul. Although you are free on more than just your life, murder is only another word for death. Indeed, the jury has unanimously recommended that the defendant be condemned to death, and the judge is now reading out their recommendation. Brady appears devoid of feeling, and the court ultimately decides to execute him. He is currently being held in a prison in Colorado while he awaits his execution, who is still incarcerated awaiting his execution verdict under the jury's decision.